Award-winning futurist researcher, keynote speaker Nikolas Badminton joining us on Canada Now. Nick, you took the summer off of our show. We might be only getting you today and then not for a couple of weeks after this, but it's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, Jeff. It feels like this summer's been very hot and very short. So I don't know. We're still boiling away here in Toronto. So life is okay, you know.
Ah, you look tanned. You got a tan going. You outside a lot or what?
For a redhead, I guess for a redhead, I
just
guess
turned
like
beet red.
I look red, Jeff. I never tan, so yeah, I've been outside, for a half hour here and there,
Yeah, your red hair is your skin color is starting to match your red hair. That's where I was getting at. Well, this week you want to discuss Notopia. Tell us exactly what Notopia is. What is your definition of Notopia?
Yeah, one of the things I've been doing over the summer is writing my book. So I had a chapter in a book called The Future Starts Now earlier this year with Bloomsbury, but I sold them on the idea of a new book called Facing Our Futures. And in that book, I'm discussing a few things, but I'm looking at like utopias, right? An imagined perfect place that doesn't truly exist. And dystopias, I'm quite well known for talking about dystopian thinking, an imagined state or society where there's great suffering or injustice, right, Jeff? Yeah. But I figured that there was actually something in between. And as I was reading through literature, I came across this phrase, Notopia, and it was originally used in architecture. And it was like that nowhere place, that blandness, where like nothing and no one truly exists. They're just, sort of scraping by. And I just feel that sort of typifies so much of a space that so many people spend their time in. And I think it's mostly in the online realm, right? So when I think about this idea of Notopia, and I'm shamelessly co-opting that term, right? And it's been used in like cyberspace and hacking culture and a whole bunch of things. But it's basically, it's a place that's populated by users, a nowhere place where nothing truly exists and nobody really matters unless they're feeding the system. It's a place where liberty and democracy are sold to you, but they don't truly exist. It's a place devoid of pathos. It kind of sounds dystopian, but it's not. It's real and it's visceral and it's here. And it's in the online realm that so many of us live in.
Is Notopia meant to look like a perfect place?
Well, it's more about a feeling, right? And if you think about it, if you play computer games, you slip VR headsets on. We know the film and the book are Ready Player One, right? That idea of the oasis and whatever, or these social networks or these content destinations like YouTube and whatever. Like we live inside of them, really, where our eyes are literally, they say our eyes are the windows into our soul, but they're basically, we've opened them up to all of this digital junk. And it's kind of interesting, right? It's just everywhere and nowhere, but we opt into it every single day, very quickly, actually.
So I often go back to the film WALL-E.
Yeah.
Are we becoming what people became in that movie, like out of shape, constantly staring at screens? Because that seems to describe those that are living in Notopia.
Yeah, I mean, possibly, right? Except for the fitness and health influences, Jeff, and they're ripped, and they the 400 selfies they do a day, and
you don't need to talk about me. You don't need to talk about me, and
I know you're looking good, Jeff. Yeah. But like, if you think about WALL-E, it's a world that's been ripped apart by consumption. But what's interesting right now, I mean, there's this big idea of the metaverse, and it's been flying around all the press. And I'm kind of irked. I've got some great friends that think about it and whatever. And the metaverse is the idea that Neil Stephenson in his book Snow Crash sort of really put out there. And it's this like, immersive, media-rich place where you can get up to some really good, good things in your life, and it can be positive. But I just think that we're being sold sort of a dollar store version of the internet today, right? The internet was supposed to be a place of freedom and open-mindedness, and a place where we could truly express ourselves without, being told what to do. And now we've been put into boxes. right? If you're on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, you're just conforming to standards and algorithmic structures, right? That's all you're doing. You're dehumanizing yourself, and you're sort of affronting the idea of humanity's right to actually be at the center of the solutions in the world.
But was the internet undervalued at its very beginning, or at the beginning of its popularity? Like, had it been thought, all right, yeah, this is free for everybody. There's a freedom that goes with the internet, and then we saw its power, we saw its influence, we saw its popularity, and then oh, wait a minute, this is clearly being abused. We got to step in there. Some governments may be saying that.
Yeah, I mean, the internet kind of started off by paying for services and paying for access to things. There were some free services like email and whatever back in the day, but very much the idea of freedom and free things and free access on the internet isn't really true. If something's free, so you can log into Instagram on your phone. Mm-hmm. You can post pictures, you're ultimately part of the product. And if you're ultimately part of the product, then you're a willing participant in this idea of Notopia, and you're literally losing your soul. You're feeding, the billions of dollars every day that are made by the big tech companies. Is an influencer with 200 million followers on Instagram, feeding themselves and their soul, or are they literally feeding the machine and ensnaring even more people into this like banal sort of nothing lifestyle, right?
Well, at the same time, we're benefiting from the internet. I mean, if an influencer has X amount of followers on Instagram or whatever, then they're making money as a result of those numbers that are going up for them, right?
Yeah, it's chains of no value, right, Jeff? It's like, hey, I've got 100,000 followers, like, buy this energy drink, or wear these shoes, or, watch this movie or whatever. And it's like, it's so temporary. Advertising and capitalism and consumerism, it's been around since the early 1900s. It was Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, that sort of helped us understand what PR and advertising was, right? And it's a psychological game. So, like, it's like the Matrix. Once you start to see the reality of the world, you just see lines of code. But ultimately, if you look at influencers, you see these slices of time where it doesn't represent any kind of real life. And I think that that's hugely dangerous today when we're trying to raise children, we're trying to create equality and equity in society. I just think this is massive distraction, and it's sort of born of convenience and access and, wanting to opt out of the reality that we have to live in.
So who's got all the power in Notopia? Is it algorithms and those that create them?
I mean, algorithms aren't really sentient in a way, right? They're literally taking data points and manipulating them and operating on them and seeing what happens and testing and iterating and, single and double viral loops and all that good stuff. But really what we've got shareholders, and we've got like the people that build the companies, right? And I think that they're in charge. I mean, do you think that people in places like Facebook sit around a table and talk about, what can we do good for humanity today? No. They're just trying to generate as much revenue as possible and trying to avert disaster in the algorithmic universes that they've created, right? So it's really screwy. And for people listening, it sounds like I'm being hugely negative, and really I'm just trying to be super real about this. And it's like, we do have a choice. Digital solipsistic society just disappearing into our bubbles isn't necessarily going to be good for us. I mean, I run websites, I do digital marketing, I do all of that stuff, but I try and like step in and step out. It's when you've got the overconsumption and the depth of engagement in the system, and really systems are only valuable if we feed them, then that's when you're part of a population of Notopia. And here's something that people should try. Stop feeding the system, stop liking photos, stop consuming them, stop scrolling and whatever. And then go back into those systems like 2 weeks later, and you'll realize they know very little about you. And all they're trying to do at that point is trying to ensnare you and drag you in even deeper. And look at the tactics that people are trying to do. The growth hackers desperately trying to drag you back in. One thing I do is, you can fill up a cart on an online ordering app for food like Uber Eats or whatever. Do that one day and don't buy something for 3 or 4 days and see what discounts you get. It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
You can start to decode the world once you see how things are happening.
Well, that would be a wonderful experiment, actually. I'm glad you brought that up, because I have just gotten used to mentioning a product in everyday conversation and looking on my phone and finding ads for it. In fact, I was speaking to someone, I remember the past year or two, I guess it was pre-pandemic, so it was a while ago, and I was speaking to a coworker, and we mentioned a company that sells washing machines, and that company, that person went home and found all those ads popping up on her phone, and since then I was like, whoa, that was like a really big moment for me, because I hadn't known that had happened, and now I find it happening all the time, and I go, yeah, well, that's how it goes. My phone's listening to me.
Yeah, everything's listening to you, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing this interview and I'm on Zoom and you're on Zoom, and what Zoom trying to do is trying to connect us and be the happy joy thumbs up place to be for meetings. But ultimately it's reduced us down to these squares in a non-real place. And it's a slippery slope, Jeff.
Yeah. Check out NikolasBadminton.com. Futurist researcher, keynote speaker, Nikolas Badminton. Always a pleasure, my friend. I hope we talk again soon. Maybe it'll be next week, but if not, it'll be in one of the weeks to follow. Thanks, pal.
Yeah, I got to get out of this reality, Jeff. So we get a chat soon.
All right. Looking forward to talking to you again, Nick. There is Nikolas Badminton.